for listening and welcome back to Distraction. I am your guest host, René Brooks. I am here today with one of my very oldest friends. He's a filmmaker, a stand-up comedian, an awesome dad, a jiu-jitsu warrior. He's like the essential Renaissance man. Koran Dunbar, welcome to Distraction.
Thank you for that opening. You know, you age me when you say Renaissance man, because all the Renaissance people I know, Renaissance men, like it's usually like guys in their 70s that have done a lot of cool stuff. So
Nah. All it means is that you did a lot of shit. That's all.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm excited. Like, this is funny. We are too busy cheering each other on. We rarely get to work together, so this is fantastic.
Yeah. This will be the first of future projects. So.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
You know, I have a few of my friends that have actually been diagnosed with ADHD. I keep bringing you up. I'm like, you know, you need to follow this person. A few of my friends have followed you and stuff, and which that's what I love. I love whenever my friends meet, and then I'll look on, you know, Facebook, and it'll be like a homegirl Miranda, and you guys follow each other now and stuff like that. So, but I've been telling people about that because, like, two of my friends, you know, one's an artist, and the other one, you know, is a teacher of all things, and you know, they were like, you know, hey, I've realized, you know, I'm starting to take medicine for ADHD. I'm like, that's good. That's fine. You know, like that's, you know, they're like, I went to my psychiatrist, I did this, I did that. And they were like, you know, what do you feel about it? I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what I feel about it. You know,
do you feel better?
Yeah. And that's what I said. And I just said, you know, and again, it comes back to society, how, you know, my one friend that's an artist, they put it out there. Right. And I saw the comments and it was very like, are you sure? You know, and they both were diagnosed with ADHD. Are you sure? Like, you know, maybe you should do this or maybe you should do that and stuff. And, you know, we had a long conversation and I always, you know, go back to you and I'm like, you know, my friend René, she is an advocate. If you get a chance, follow her, you know, all of her social media platforms, because there's a lot that she, you know, humanizes. That's horrible. I forgot to use the word humanizing humans, but she humanizes this condition because, like, it's kind of like what I posted a while ago, where it's like people, you know, see my hearing aid, like, oh, you're too young to need a hearing aid, or things that they can't see. Society is just like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, what did you do to get there, or whatever and stuff.
Yeah, they ask you how you got there so they can decide whether you deserved it or not.
Yeah, if you deserve sympathy or whatever, or whatever, you know, whatever. And that's the thing that, like, I've realized, and I'm sure you've had your share of moments, you know, dealing with like audiences, dealing with people, dealing with with that as well and stuff. And it's just like
often.
Yes, yeah, more often than we ever want to admit and stuff. And just people don't understand, like, I won't even say the industry, how being an artist works, right?
Yeah.
I think what people, you know, when they see you living your life, like, they look at that like point, maybe the 1% of whatever industry you're in, you know. And I always tell people, this is a horrible example, but like, if you're not a Johnny Cochran as an attorney, then you're not an attorney, right? Then people are like, well, no, because, you know, my dad's an attorney, but no, he's not famous. He's not an attorney. He's not real. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he drives a Maserati, has a nice, but no, he's not really an attorney because he's not Johnny Cochran, this high profile attorney and stuff. And I think that's what people don't realize. Like, you know, no one's going to deny me being an artist and like, oh, well, you have to be a professional artist. Well, I realized when COVID hit and my money started drying up and my checking account started looking really funny, like, oh, well, normally, you know, I'll have this for Aurelius or that or whatever like that. And I wasn't doing, you know, freelance film work. I wasn't like shooting stuff. I wasn't like DJing anymore. You know, that's when I realized, like, that's how I paid. Like, I mean, that couch right there, that was from USAA. That was like my biggest modeling gig. Went national. It was on a billboard in like California and stuff. And that was like, you know, it was things like that where it's like, oh, I need to get this. And people think every artist has to be driving this like super fancy car, living in this, you know, big house and stuff like that.
They do. I remember which project paid for my bed. I got a contract with a pharmaceutical company to write, and I, like, when I moved into this apartment, I was broke and I did not have a bed. And I got this contract, and when my first check came, the first thing that I did was buy a bed. That gig paid for my bed, and I remember it.
And it feels good. It feels so good. It feels so good. It's the best feeling when you look at something and you're like, oh, okay. Like, it's just special, right? Like,
Yes.
like, oh, well, this or that, or like, your bed. And every time like me, like, it's something intrinsic that I can't explain about knowing, like, oh, something I created allowed me to, sustain my son. His wrestling allowed me to,
Yes.
do this or buy. It's a good feeling, and it's something I can't explain. It's a great feeling, and it just gives that bed or just so much more value. And stuff,
it has significance.
And
like, I can remember sitting, like, I went up to New York to film we did a piece with Bustle and Takeda collaboration, where they wanted me to share my story. And I remember walking into like the sound stage and looking, and there's this huge camera crew, and there's a makeup artist, and there's a wardrobe room, and all of this stuff. And I'm like, oh wow, this is cool. Like, I wonder what else they're gonna. And then it dawned on me, like, all of this shit is here for me.
Yeah,
this was some shit I made up in my head. This was like a vision that I had, and it manifested into this. Like, you just, like,
you birthed
that's
it.
the thing with art. Yeah, like, you put it together and you think, like, I think this can help this person, or maybe somebody else will benefit from this story, but you don't necessarily know where it's gonna go. Like, you think it has potential, but when your idea takes root and starts to grow even beyond what you thought it would.
Hey everyone, this is Sarah Gurton, producer of Distraction. I am here with Landmark College student Steven Saltero. Steven, how's it going in Putney, Vermont?
We're starting to get snow, so that's fun. Vermont weather's kicking in, finally.
So you're wrapping up your semester here, or pretty much looking forward, I'm sure, to the end of the semester. I was wondering if there was anything you wish you had known about Landmark that would have helped make your decision to go there a little bit easier.
I don't think necessarily would affect my willingness to go or not. I think because, especially this is my second time around, this is much more of like, oh, I know what Landmark has, and this is what I'm more into.
Yeah.
But I think more of the misconception, clearing that part out, because while I don't have that, many of my people I know have had some misconceptions about what Landmark is, and especially things like not hand-holding, we're all adults type stuff. And so it's like, it's one of those things people grow into. Being with LDs, they're always considered that the separate but equal type mentality.
Right.
But it's never really that. People just want to put you in a box. And I think that's something that when it comes to Landmark, especially the staff, the teachers, the fellow students, being handheld is the worst thing you could ever do. And being the person holding your hand is the worst job. So very much, I think a misconception that when I came here especially was, you're an adult, it's college. It's, even though it's a college for people with a specific need, it's just like a college for a school for the deaf, or it's just like a college for people who just need a little bit of helpful because they're in a wheelchair. It has nothing to do with how your brain is. And I think we tend to think learning differences, not the same as like physical disadvantages.
Mm-hmm.
You're still here to learn. You're still here to experience the college life. And with that comes the responsibilities of college. And with that comes the parts of building friendships for a lifetime, with expectations of being a student. It's something that's an endless battle, I guess, struggle. I don't know how you want to put it, but it's life. And I think having this place be a sanctuary where you can learn at not being thrown literally in with the sharks, despite our mascot, it's good. That's something I'm more applauding rather than like, oh, I wish I knew this, because it's like, that's just good to know.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think that's a great way to end our segments here, and we really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insights and opinions with us and our audience. And we wish you a lot of luck at Landmark for the rest of the time that you're there and in your future.
Yep. I'll be graduating actually this Saturday with my associates. So
Congratulations.
oh, thank you.
And if you'd like to learn more about Landmark College, you can go to lcdistraction.org. All right, let's get back to the show.
You knew Greencastle was going to be big. Did you ever think it would be as big as it was? Did you think Greencastle would be sell out the Maryland Theater big?
Honestly, no. I wrote 3, and I don't consider myself a writer by any stretch of the imagination, right? I just knew no one's going to tell my story or tell our story. To me, it was very raw. Like I was like, I need to tell a story. I promised my grandmother. My grandmother was my biggest influence, one of my biggest influences as an artist. She supported me, and that's rare in Black families to support art. Rare. It was so bad. My grandmother would we'd go over lines in was us 3rd grade in plays. My grandmother was behind my grandfather's back. He didn't want to hear anything with acting or any of that stuff. It was a waste of time. And my grandmother was I remember the look on her face when I would I only got the part because I had a 3-piece suit because my grandmother bought me a 3-piece suit. So the teacher was here we are in this Shady Grove school. I'm the only Black kid. And then my grandmother's sitting there and she's mouthing the lines because we went over it for weeks before it. But that memory burned in my head. And obviously my stand-up wasn't clean. So my grandmother couldn't come out. But after I got back from LA at MTV, it was kind of that adrenaline. And that creative adrenaline dump. And you had to wait for the show to come out. So you can't tell people you're wrong.
You can't tell anybody and you just have to sit there.
You sign this contract that's this thick.
This is don't tell nobody.
Yeah, you can't because you sign a confidentiality agreement. It's not even an office. I literally was going back to the house from a bar or a club or whatever, and the crew comes up and gives you this contract and you sign it. You're signing whatever, and then when you go in the room, they take your phone and they take your wallet, right? So they keep you from that's a lot of things that people don't realize. They take. So you can't record, you can't do anything like that and stuff. But I come back and I'm just man, it's that feeling that you have to that birthing pain that you have to get this thing out. And my grandma, I did local theater, which I'm so glad I did. Everyone's oh, that's beneath me.
Yes.
No, I'm I wanted to create, and I didn't say anyone what I was doing. I didn't tell anyone whatever. And it hit right around the time. So the episode, I think they were allowed to talk about it. So then I auditioned and I didn't say a word. I said, they called me. I just showed up. And then the director's hey, can I talk to you? He's you do comedy, you do this and that. You're on Conan O'Brien. I was yeah. And me, I'm just it's I still haven't been able to feel comfortable with my successes, right?
Yes.
I wouldn't even said successes years ago. I'm learning to say that. I would not ever feel comfortable with it. And, my grandmother, she could come out. It was Annie Warbucks. It was a sequel. It was the sequel to Annie, right? And I played such a stereotypical role. I played a sharecropper. I was
there.
Yeah, but it was great, and it just allowed me to really appreciate the creative side, and I probably want to do more theater and local theater again. And after that happened, my grandmother went to the hospital, never got out. She went in, never came out. So that Friday, she was supposed to watch me perform. She went in, and that guilt that I had was and that's when I started writing Greencastle. And I wrote it out of this was, at the end of the movie, I dedicated to my grandmother and my mother. But I never had any idea. I didn't know what I was doing. I just was I think the best thing about being creative and artist is staying naive, right? Because I didn't know you don't do this. You don't just write a feature film. You don't do that. But I didn't know that. So I was naive. So I went so far from that.
You had no idea.
Yeah. And that's a great thing. I always tell when I would go and talk to kids about when I go lecture to college kids or I'd go talk to high school kids that want to be artists, they're what's the best advice you can give? I'm stay naive. Stay naive, because now what I know, when I took a loan on my 401k, used my house as collateral, that's insane. But I didn't know any better. I'm I'll bounce back, whatever and stuff. But life conditions you.
I love it.
To kind of no, dude, do you want to do that again and stuff? And, that's kind of I had no idea. And it's just even when I applied for jobs, I was being interviewed the other week and oh, we did some research. You have a Wikipedia page. I'm yeah, I do. Like, huh, we did more research. Like, why don't you talk about it? And it's just, it's still being comfortable, as you already know, with like success, not, does it like just being comfortable with it, you know what I mean? And just like, I hope one day, like, I'll be able to be like, yeah, like, that's, I've done some cool stuff living in Ecuador. Like, I'm still like,
Yes.
like my friends, have you lived there? I'm like, yeah, I had an apartment down there,
First of all, how do you know what? Your friends are whack. How you not notice that a friend of yours is gone for half of a year? Like, it's not like you would like come back up for like a week.
Well, I shut my Facebook down.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I shut my Facebook down. Everyone knows you by your social media, so I shut my Facebook down.
So if they weren't looking for you, they wouldn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I kept my Instagram open, but I kind of, because I was detoxing from social media and stuff.
Koran, it has been a pleasure having you on the podcast. It's been a pleasure always, as you know, watching your journey and getting feedback from you on mine. It's a wonderful thing to have friends who knew you when you were really struggling and stuck around to see how the end was going to turn out, the end, so to speak, to watch you turn it around. So I'm glad that you're one of them, man. Thank you for coming.
Renee, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It is a pleasure. We're going to put some actual links to some of Koran's projects in the show notes since he's playing humble today. He's actually a great filmmaker, so you'll get to see some of it there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Please reach out to us and let us know what you think. Record a voice memo or write an email and send it to connect@distractionpodcast.com. Distraction is created by Sounds Great Media. Our producer is Sarah Gurton. I'm Renee Brooks. You can find me at blackgirllostkeys.com and on Twitter at BLKGirlLostKeys. Until next time.